People often wonder why God chose Israel. It's a big question, and it can feel a little confusing, maybe even a little unfair if you don't know the story. Like, why just one group of people? Why not everyone? But the Bible tells us a clear story. It helps us understand God's heart. And it shows us that his choice of Israel was always, always meant for everyone. It was never just about them. So, let's talk about it. First, we need to go back to the very beginning. Not the creation, but the start of the specific story. It begins with a man named Abram. Later, God changed his name to Abraham. This man lived in Ur of the Chaldeans. He wasn't special in the way we think of special. He came from a family that probably worshipped other gods. But God saw him, and God called him. God told Abram to leave his country. He told him to leave his people and his father's house. And God said, "Go to the land I will show you." This was a big ask. It meant leaving everything familiar. It meant trusting in a God he was just getting to know. But Abram went. And with that step of faith, a huge promise unfolded. God made a covenant with Abram. A covenant is like a really serious promise or agreement. God promised Abram three main things. 1, he would make Abram into a great nation. 2, he would bless Abram, and he would make his name great. 3, and this is the really important part, through Abram, all the families of the earth would be blessed. Did you catch that last part? All the families of the earth. From the very beginning, God's plan wasn't just for Abram, or just for his descendants, it was for everyone. Abram's family, who would become Israel, was chosen to be the channel for this blessing. They were the means, not the end. The blessing itself was for the whole world. Think about that. God chose one man, and through him he started a nation. This nation would eventually be called Israel. But the reason for their existence was always bigger than just themselves. It was always about bringing God's light and God's blessing to every single person on the planet. So, why Israel? It wasn't because they were better than anyone else. The Bible's very clear about this. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 7-8 tells us, "The Lord did not set his affection on you and choose you because you were more numerous than other peoples, for you were the fewest of all peoples. But as the Lord loved you and kept the oath he swore to your ancestors, he brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the land of slavery, from the power of Pharaoh, king of Egypt." Did you read that? God chose them because he loved them, and because he had made a promise to their ancestors, especially Abraham. It was an act of pure grace. It wasn't based on their merit. It wasn't based on their strength or their numbers. It was based on God's sovereign choice and his faithfulness to his word. God chose them out of love. He chose them to keep a promise, and he chose them for a purpose. That purpose was to be a people who would represent him to the world. They were to be a demonstration, a living example of what it means to be in a relationship with the one true God. When God rescued them from slavery in Egypt, he did it in a spectacular way. He performed amazing miracles. He parted the Red Sea. He showed his power. But he didn't just do it for Israel. He did it so that all the nations would know that he is the Lord. The story of the Exodus was a billboard for the world. It showed who God is and what he can do. After they left Egypt, God brought Israel to Mount Sinai. There, he gave them his laws. This wasn't just a bunch of rules. It was a covenant, a way for them to live. It showed them how to be holy, how to be set apart, how to live as God's people. And again, this was for a reason beyond themselves. Exodus chapter 19, verse 5-6 says that if they would obey him, they would be his treasured possession among all nations, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. A kingdom of priests. What does a priest do? A priest stands between God and people. A priest represents God to the people and the people to God. So Israel was meant to be a nation of priests. They were meant to show the world what God is like. They were to be a light. They were to attract people to God. They were to be a witness. They were meant to live in such a way that people from other nations would look at them and say, wow, what a wise and understanding people this great nation is. What other nation has God so near to them as the Lord our God is to us whenever we call on him? And what other nation has decrees and laws that are as righteous as this entire body of laws I am setting before you today? That's from Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 6-8. That was the idea. They were supposed to shine. But as we read the Bible, we see something else. Israel struggled a lot. They didn't always live up to this high calling. They messed up. They turned away from God. They worshipped other gods. They forgot their purpose. They acted just like the nations around them, sometimes even worse. They often failed to be that light. They often failed to be that kingdom of priests. They didn't always show the world who God was. Instead, sometimes they pushed people away from God. Their history is full of disobedience, rebellion, and breaking the covenant. But here's the amazing part. Even when Israel failed, God didn't give up on his plan. He didn't abandon his promise. He sent prophets to warn them. He sent judges to rescue them. He allowed them to go into exile as a consequence of their sin. But even in exile, he promised to bring them back. He promised to restore them. Why? Because he is faithful. He keeps his promises. And his ultimate plan of blessing all nations through them was still on track. Through all their struggles, one central promise kept coming up. The promise of a Messiah, a deliverer, someone who would come from Israel, someone who would set things right, someone who would truly fulfill all the promises God made to Abraham, someone who would truly be the light for all nations. And that brings us to Jesus. Jesus was an Israelite. He was a Jew. He was born in Bethlehem. He grew up in Nazareth. He was a descendant of Abraham. He was the promised Messiah. He perfectly fulfilled all the prophecies about him. He perfectly lived out what Israel was supposed to be. He was the ultimate embodiment of God's chosen one. He was perfectly righteous. He was perfectly obedient. And through Jesus, God's plan for all nations reached its climax. Jesus didn't just come for the Jews, he came for the whole world. Remember that promise to Abraham, that all families of the earth would be blessed through him? Jesus is that blessing. He is the one through whom everyone can come to God. Before Jesus, the way to God was through the Mosaic Law. It was through being an Israelite, through following the specific rules and rituals God gave to that nation. But Jesus changed everything. He established a new covenant, a new agreement. This new covenant is not based on keeping a set of rules, it's based on faith in him. When Jesus died on the cross, he paid the penalty for the sins of the whole world. And when he rose from the dead, he conquered sin and death. He opened up a way for everyone to have a relationship with God. Not just Jews, not just one nation, but anyone, anywhere who believes in him. So, what does this mean for us? For those of us who are not ethnic Israelites, it means everything. It means that we, through faith in Jesus, are now part of that family. We are now beneficiaries of that promise to Abraham. Paul explains this very clearly in his letter to the Galatians. He says in Galatians chapter 3, verse 28-29, "There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. And if you are Christ, then you are Abraham's offspring, heirs according to the promise." Think about that. If you trust in Jesus, you are Abraham's offspring. You are an heir to the promise. This isn't because of your background. It isn't because of your ethnicity. It's because of your faith in Jesus. He is the link. He is the bridge. The wall that once separated Jews and Gentiles has been broken down. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 14 says that Jesus himself is our peace, who has made the two groups one and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility. There's no longer an exclusive club. The invitation is open to everyone. The church, which is made up of believers from every nation, tribe, people, and language, is now the vehicle for God's global blessing. We are now called to be that kingdom of priests. We are called to be that holy nation. We are called to be a light to the world, just like Israel was originally called to be. But now it's not limited to one ethnicity, it's open to everyone who belongs to Jesus. This doesn't mean God is done with ethnic Israel. Far from it. That's another really important part of the story. The Apostle Paul talks about this in Romans chapters 9-11. He grapples with the fact that many of his fellow Israelites did not accept Jesus as the Messiah. This was a deep sadness for him, but he makes it clear God has not rejected his people, Israel. God's promises to them are still valid. He says that a partial hardening has come upon Israel, which has allowed the Gentiles to come into the family of God. This was part of God's plan, and eventually Paul believes all Israel will be saved. God has a future plan for them. This shows us God's incredible faithfulness. He keeps his promises even when people fail. He doesn't go back on his word. His choice of Israel was part of an eternal plan, and he will bring it to completion. The fact that God still has a plan for ethnic Israel reminds us that he is absolutely sovereign. He works things out. His purposes stand. So what does this all mean for us today in our everyday lives? A few really important things. First, it should lead us to profound humility. We didn't earn our place in God's family. We didn't do anything special to deserve it. It was pure grace. God chose Israel because of his love and his promise. And he has chosen to include us in that promise through Jesus. Again, out of his love and grace. There is no room for pride. We are grafted in. We depend entirely on the root, which is Israel and the covenants God made with them. We should never look down on ethnic Israel. We owe them everything, really. Our salvation comes through a Jewish Messiah whose lineage traces back to Abraham. Second, it should fill us with immense gratitude. Be thankful for God's long-term plan. Be thankful for his patience. Be thankful that he opened the way for us. Imagine if God had given up on his plan when Israel messed up. Where would we be? But he didn't. He kept working, he kept his promises, and ultimately he sent Jesus. Third, it gives us a clear mission. We are now the ones who carry the blessing to the nations. Just as Israel was supposed to be a light, we are now called to be that light. And Jesus said, "You are the light of the world." We are to live lives that reflect God's character. We are to share the good news of Jesus with everyone we meet in every corner of the earth. We are to be God's witnesses. This is our purpose. This is why we are here. To make God known, to invite others into this incredible family. Fourth, it calls us to intercession. We should pray for ethnic Israel, we should pray for their eyes to be open to Jesus, their Messiah, and we should pray for the church worldwide, for all the people who have responded to God's call. We are all part of one big family, and we should support each other. Fifth, it teaches us deeply about God's character. He is faithful, he is sovereign, he is loving, he is just. He keeps his promises always. Even when it seems impossible, even when people fail him, he is unchanging. This should give us incredible confidence and peace. If God is faithful to his grand plan for Israel and the world, he will be faithful to you too. He will see you through. And finally, it gives us hope. God's plan is not finished. It is unfolding. He is working in history. He is bringing all things to a glorious conclusion. The story of Israel leading to Jesus, leading to the church, leading to the return of Jesus, is a story of hope. It reminds us that no matter how dark things seem, God is in control. His purposes will prevail. And one day, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. And that will be a blessing for all the families of the earth, just as he promised Abraham. So, God chose Israel not because they were special in themselves, but because he is special. He chose them out of love, to keep a promise, and to be the channel for a blessing that was always meant for everyone. And now, through Jesus, that blessing is available to us. And we get to be part of the ongoing story of bringing that blessing to the rest of the world. It's a truly amazing story, and it's our story too if we are in Christ.